A righteous man's shoes, Haftarat, Vayeshev. This week's Haftarah begins with one of the prophet Amos's most famous prophecies, which is, in my opinion, the quintessential example of an associative connection between a Parashah and Haftarah. The Haftarah opens with the last and most detailed section of Amos's 3 and 4 sins prophecies concerning various nations. These are sins for which, while the first 3 might have been forgiven, the 4th breaks all boundaries and demands that Hashem punishes the transgressing nation. The Haftarah begins with the most significant people in the book of Amos, the kingdom of Israel. The final and most detailed prophecy in the series of prophecies, Hashem will not forgive the kingdom of Israel for selling the righteous for silver and the needy for shoes. What earns our Haftarah the title of association champion is the profound difference between how the literal commentators interpret the sin described in these verses and how the Midrash does so. The literalists all explain that this refers to common social sins in society during the prophet's time, regardless of whether it involves judges who prevent justice, tycoons who push the poor off their lands, or litigants who defame the righteous until they are executed, while all literal interpretations share is that this is not a metaphor. Not so, explains the Midrash Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. According to the Midrash, the selling Israelites refers to Yaakov's 10 sons from our Parashah, the righteous man being sold as Yosef HaTzadik, and the shoes are what each brother brought with his share of the 20 pieces of silver receiving for selling him. The choice to begin the Haftarah with these verses, even if there might be additional connections to the Parashah, proves that those who arranged the Haftarah also supported the interpretation by the author of Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer. Before continuing, it's worth noting that I'm not claiming that the shoes for which the needy are sold are the only or even the main reason why the sages chose the prophecy of Amos for this Haftarah. The continuation of the Haftarah, which deals with the futility of attempting to prevent Hashem's will, is very much connected to the Parashah. Just as a lion that roars in the forest has found prey, and the trap that rises from the ground catches prey, so too, when Hashem sends a prophecy, it comes to pass. When discussing our Parashah, the brothers' actions cannot invalidate Yosef's dreams. They have prophetic validity. It's also worth emphasizing, as we've explained before, that the sages don't need much legitimization to turn a prophecy into Haftarah. If the selling of the needy in Amos's time can remind us of Yosef's sale, even if this wasn't the prophecy's intent, there is sufficient justification for making it a Haftarah. Their goal is, after all, only to remind us of the event. Our discussion is mainly about how much weight to give to the Midrash in an independent study of the prophecy. And back to our program. From a literal perspective, there are many reasons not to connect Israel's 4th crime to Yosef's sale. First, the prophet's role is to warn and encourage certain behavior, not to remind people of things that happened about 800 years before his time. This doesn't mean prophets don't use historical examples. Historical examples are common. It means that historical phenomena are usually starters, not the straw that breaks the camel's back. It would make sense to tell the kingdom of Israel that their current immoral behavior is a direct continuation of selling Yosef. It's much harder to say that the sin that seals their evil fate, following 3 sins that could still be forgiven, is prehistoric. Second, Israel's crime concludes a long series of crimes by various kingdoms. The prophet addresses the crimes of Damascus, Gaza, Tzor, Edom, Moab, Yehuda, and Israel. Accusing the kingdom of Israel of selling Yosef is interesting mainly because the kingdom's alternative name is Ephraim, meaning Yosef. It's a bit like accusing someone of selling themselves. True, other tribes took part in selling Yosef, and they're also part of the Israeli kingdom, but what should we do with the cool slogans like, "You're the head, it's your fault"? Blaming the victim becomes even more absurd when we understand who isn't being accused. Yehuda's crime, which preceded Israel's crime, don't include selling Yosef. Yehuda played a central role in selling Yosef. He instigated it. Is it right to punish Yosef's kingdom and ignore Yehuda's? These are probably the main reasons that prevented the literal commentators from connecting our prophecy to the story of Yosef's sale. Examining Radak and Abarbanel's commentaries, however, can yield a third reason. After bringing several literal interpretation, Radak adds, "And those who err, saying that they sold the righteous for silver refers to Jesus, their answer is that the passage's subject is only about the evil deeds they were doing every day, as is the subject of the entire passage. Furthermore, why did he count for mention it in Israel's crime? He should have said it in Yehuda's crimes, for they sold him according to their words. As is the Second Temple period, there were only Yehuda, not the 10 tribes. Also, the Midrash that interprets it about Yosef's sale doesn't fit the passage's subject. Furthermore, Yehuda suggested selling him, and it should have been mentioned in Yehuda's prophecy." The first two rebuttals Radak gives at the beginning of his commentary against the view of those who err, even if not completely identical to the reasons we don't adopt the Midrashic interpretation, at least remind us of them. 1. The prophet rebukes the people for current actions, not historical ones. 2. The story of Christianity's founder's sale occurred in Yehuda's kingdom, several hundred years after Amos's prophecies, but who's counting? And doesn't count as Israel's crime. But this isn't the important bit in Radak's words. Radak often seasons his commentary with Midrashim, and although he's not afraid to disagree with them, he has no problem bringing their words for the sake of sharing a beautiful Midrash. This time, Radak gives the Midrash no leeway. Allowing for the Midrash with the questions it raises opens the door to recognize the Christian dogma that resembles it in character, albeit not exactly. Should this information have implications for the Haftarah? We've already said not. This is the dilemma that has accompanied us since the Haftarah of Bereshit. What are we more, students of prophecy or students of Haftarah? I'm not going to even attempt to answer that question. Regardless of the answer I give today, it's destined to change to whatever catches my fancy next week. In memory of my beloved and heroic student, Amichai Shimon ben Ishai and Bat Yerubin Hashem Yikom Damo, Dovi Holtz, one who loves Tanakh.